The Oklahoma Sooners 2025 recruiting class is just getting started. We're going to find out who they're trending in the positive direction for on tonight's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase over at Gametime. My name is Jonah Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Hummer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday on the KRF Sports app from 9 to noon. And Josh, there's been a lot made about Oklahoma's recruiting class in 2025. They've gotten off to a much quicker start than what they did in the 2024 cycle that didn't see a commitment until March 23rd of last year, like 9 months before signing day. Well, at this point, we're sitting here 10 months before the early signing period, and the Oklahoma Sooners already have 10 commits. They sit top 5 in the national recruiting rankings, but it seems like based on the trends on the recruiting trail that Oklahoma is just getting started, that things are about to really pick up over the next 6, 7, 8, 9 months for the Sooners. And we could see perhaps another really, really impressive class from Brent Venables and his coaching staff.
Yeah, it's wild to think that this time, not even a year ago, this time Oklahoma still didn't have a commit in their 2024 class. That's kind of crazy to think about. And obviously they're much further along in this class. So well ahead of schedule. And oh, by the way, if you look up and start checking the lay of the land to see who could be next, well, via On3's Keegan Pope, they went through and sort of just put together the folks from the On3 side of the predictions equation where Oklahoma has predictions in for. 5-star linebacker Jonah Williams, 4-star athlete and edge guy CJ Nixon, 4-star running back Torrey Blaylock, 4-star edge Max Granville, and 4-star corner Kobe Sellers. So what do we take from that? Well, number one, there's 5 more names to add to the board potentially for Oklahoma. And generally speaking, it's defensive guys for OU. So you've gotten off to a fast start with skill guys, wide receivers in this class, but Oklahoma is very quickly shifting into, okay, let's add some blue chip defensive talent to go along with that. And obviously they are perceived by some from On3 to be the leaders in those 5 recruitments. So we could be adding some new names to this 2025 class that's already shaping up to be another great one in short order.
Yeah, Kevin Sperry kind of helped get the ball rolling on the offensive side of the ball with the wide receiver recruitments, and even at running back. I think you're seeing the movement made on Torrey Blaylock as well. But yeah, the defensive side, that's coming, and they've even recruited fairly well on defense as well to get going. But I mean, the Kamari Moore, that's a guy that if you're looking for a Jaden Jackson of this class, he's going to be that guy that rises to that blue chip category. But you're seeing the trends for Williams and for Kobe Sellers, Granville and CJ Nixon, everything trending toward Oklahoma. And that's 4 more blue chip prospects, including a 5-star that you're going to be able to add to your ranks in this cycle. And it's defensive line. It's, the secondary. I know, the Jonah Williams thing, you see linebacker, you see, defensive back. I could see him as a cheetah for Oklahoma. He could play a lot of different spots for you because he's that dynamic and he's that good of a player that could play all over your defense and be really, really effective. But this is what we're expecting out of Brent Venables and his coaching staff. We're expecting blue chip defensive talent stacked year after year after year. Now they're in their 4th cycle, their 3rd kind of cycle that they've gotten to have a full year with on the recruiting trail. And it's coming together. I mean, you had the 2023 cycle where you got PJ Adebaware, you got Peyton Bowen. You had the 24 cycle where you added David Stone, a 5-star player. but you added a number of blue chip prospects and Nigel Smith and Jaden Jackson, Wyatt Gilmore, Danny Okoye, and the list goes on. And now in 25, that list is going to continue to grow of blue chip talent that Venables and his defensive staff are putting together. And that's going to be the thing that helps Oklahoma get into that top 10, top 5 defensive statistical categories. That's going to help them get back into national title contention for real.
We've spent a lot of time on 25 talking about, okay, the Sooners are cleaning up in state. Elijah Thomas, Chakota, Oklahoma kid, right? Jaden Nickens out of Millwood in OKC. Kevin Sperry started elsewhere, but now is, of course, at Carl Albert in Oklahoma. Trinae Washington, another guy from Carl Albert. Marcus James, Carl Albert, right? So on and on and on. The Oklahoma connections in this class are big. But you look up and you see Grayson Harris out of Ennis, Texas. Ryan Foji out of Bridgeland in Cypress, Texas. Alexander Shield, I didn't mention him, out of Wagner. And what do these 5 names that we're talking about here have in common? Well, they're all out of Oklahoma's sort of perceived natural recruiting base. So Oklahoma, not just in the state of Oklahoma, but in Galveston for Jonah Williams, Weatherford for CJ Nixon, out of the Houston area for Torrey Blaylock, Sugarland, Texas for Max Granville, Pearland, Texas for Kobe Sellers. Oklahoma in these regional fertile recruiting grounds that you hope and expect that the Sooners will recruit well. Again, those names not commitments for Oklahoma, but 5 names that could be added to the list, a couple of them anytime relatively soon, or that Oklahoma is thought to be a serious player for. OU in this class, John, again, I said it about the in-state commits already, that it's those relationships building and coming home to roost. Well, that's across the board in this region for Oklahoma. And they've recruited national too. It's not just OKC and Tulsa in the state of Oklahoma and Houston, Dallas, Texas, but you have to be successful there if you're Oklahoma. Long-term, you want to win, SEC championships and national championships. You can't be getting beat in the state of Oklahoma and in the, big parts of Texas. And right here, it looks like, okay, again, Oklahoma's trending very, very positively there.
Yeah, we've seen this staff go across the country for prospects. We talked about it on a show earlier this week, how they've been able to go into California and Florida and hit up those areas for blue chip prospects. And they'll continue to do that. But what they're doing is they're laying the foundation with Oklahoma and Texas, their natural recruiting bases, but it's going to sprawl even beyond that. I mean, we've seen them have success in Washington, in Maryland. They're getting up into New Jersey as well for kids. And so that's going to continue to grow. But yeah, what they're doing right now in Oklahoma is just ridiculous. And then obviously they're going to have their hits in Texas. They're not going to win all the recruiting battles for prospects out of the state of Texas because everybody's going to recruit Texas. That's just the way it's going to be. Alabama, Georgia, Texas, obviously Texas A&M, LSU, everybody's going to go down in the state of Texas. But if you're Oklahoma, you've got to be able to pull top flight prospects out of that state because of your proximity to it. It's a recruiting bed for you. You've got to go win some of those. And they're doing that on a regular basis. And they're going to continue to do that because one thing we've seen out of Brent Venables and his staff is they can recruit at a very, very high level. Now they got to take that high level and help get to the highest level and be able to recruit on par with Georgia and with Alabama, at least Alabama under Nick Saban. And that's going to be what helps get them to the next level. You can't completely rely on transfers. Yeah, development matters, and developing your 3 stars into 4 or 5-star type of players, that matters too. But you got to start with those 5. You got to get those 4 and 5 stars, and you got to have blue chip classes. That is going to be what takes you to the next level. The Oklahoma Sooners are looking like a team that is kind of on the verge of title contention, or at least college football playoff contention if we're looking towards the 2024 season. What does Bill Connelly, the analytics guru for ESPN, what does he have to say about Oklahoma's outlook for the 2024 season? We'll talk about it next, coming up here on Locked On Sooners. The NFL might be over, but hey, there's always great events happening near you, and the best place to go for last-minute tickets, flash deals over at Gametime. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. You're looking for tickets to the theater, for comedy shows, Gametime's got you covered. You can get views from all seats in the venue, the lowest price guaranteed, even cancellation protection or job loss protection over at Gametime. It is the best ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Right now, all Gametime users can get $20 off their first purchase by using promo code Locked On. Again, you can get $20 off your first purchase by using promo code Locked On. Download Gametime today. The last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed over at Gametime. Good old Bill Connelly of ESPN fame is always a great source for information, just nonstop information for projections, for the SP Plus rating, the football power index, the returning production metrics. Bill Connelly has a hand in all of those things. And looking ahead to Oklahoma's 2024 season, he kind of thinks that where they're being projected right now, kind of in that mid-teens area, is about right for what they are right now on paper, based on returning production, based on the recruiting that they've done. Looking ahead to 2024, I think that's not a bad place to start for the Sooners.
Here's what he said to On3. He says they're going to be right there in the teens, and it makes perfect sense. Their defense is going to be far more experienced this coming season, and it already improved at least a little bit last season. This is kind of interesting. Offense is kind of a question mark. Obviously, you lose Dylan Gabriel. You lose your offensive coordinator. The talent they have in place as replacements, it looked good on paper, but it's going to be an interesting spot for them as they get better defensively, but try to fend off getting worse offensively. That's going to dictate whether they have top 10 potential or merely top 30 or something potential. End quote. Do you agree or disagree with any of that there?
No, I think it's a fair analysis of where Oklahoma's at. Now, I think with the crimson colored glasses on, wearing my crimson, True Anthem shirt today, or True Classic, I should say, I have maybe higher expectations and a lot more optimism about where Oklahoma's at, but a realistic perspective on Oklahoma is, hey, they've got to still make sure that offensive line comes together. Now, I think we all believe that they have answers, or have at least answered the question through the transfer portal and through the recruiting ranks that are going to give them answers for the 2024 season. We like Jackson Arnold. I think all of us believe that he's got that top flight talent. Now he's got to just get on the field and show it. We've seen quarterbacks that looked really, really good on paper, or at least on the recruiting trail, not really pan out. I don't think that's going to be the case for Jackson Arnold. So, yeah, I mean, the offense does seem to be a little bit more the question, but I think even defensively, there are still questions. This team's got to continue to get better as a pass rushing unit. I think run defense has gotten really, really improved. It's got to take another step. The coverage has to take a step. Everything's got to continue to get better on the defensive side of the ball, but a lot of it, what's going to make or break Oklahoma, I do think will fall on the offensive line and on Jackson Arnold's shoulders this season.
No doubt. The acquisitions out of the transfer portal up front, how all of that comes together will be a big time deciding factor in whether or not we're talking about OU as a legitimate player in the SEC in year one, or if they kind of get beat up a little bit maybe in year one in the SEC. So my hope is that Coach Biedenbow, as we'll discuss in just a moment here, he has a track record for finding a way to put things together and get guys, the best out of them. And all of a sudden you look up and I don't know, there's 3 Sooners headed to the NFL Combine, right? Hopefully they've found the types of players that they can, if not initially, get there, as the season rolls along. But, I think it's fair to have questions on both sides of the football for OU. Obviously the return of Danny Stutzman, the return of Billy Bowman. If we're talking combine guys, well, those are 2 guys that would be, certainly Stutzman would be pretty highly sought after. And I would think, Billy Bowman, had he elected to go, he would have been relatively sought after as well, fairly well thought of if he had elected to go. So Oklahoma got a couple of stars back defensively that should help fortify things. And yet the secondary, in part because, well, up front, maybe you weren't great collectively all the time. It really wasn't great a season ago. The tail end of the season wasn't really great a season ago, John. I mean, they ended the year by sort of reverting back to giving up a bunch of yards, giving up a bunch of points. So I agree with what Connelly said that, yes, they did improve a little bit last season, in particular early, and that was exemplified. No greater moment than the goal line stand versus Texas and again versus UCF before a penalty sort of wiped that whole situation away. But we saw Oklahoma improve, and yet they're not there defensively either. So I get what Bill Connelly's saying, that maybe this next season for Oklahoma is defined by what happens along the offensive line. Does Jackson Arnold turn into the 5-star quickly that we know he has the potential to be and has all of the tools to be? I could be there for that argument, but honestly, Oklahoma to me has a lot of proving on both sides of the football. It's not just offense that I'm looking at.
Yeah, no, I think you can point to several areas in which Oklahoma's got something to prove. And I feel the most comfortable about the offensive line because I've seen Bill Bedenbaugh go get Chris Murray and Makeda Matire and Wanye Morris out of the transfer portal and make them starters. And Wanye Morris just played in the Super Bowl. You know, he was a 3rd-round draft pick. And so I have confidence that, okay, we're going to see Fabechi Wiwu come in and be a really, really good player for the Sooners. Spencer Brown, the same. Michael Tarkin. I feel like those 3 guys at least are going to be significant players for them. And then the Washington transfer kid, I'm sure he'll have a role as well. But I feel confident in what Bill Bedenbaugh's putting together along the offensive line. And I do feel somewhat confident about the pass rush as well, because, you know, if R. Mason Thomas can get through an offseason healthy and fall camp healthy, I think he'll hit the ground running in his 3rd year with the Sooners. PJ Adebaware, the sky is the limit for that kid. It's just got to come together, and he's got to put it together on the football field. Interior, the defensive tackle position. I think if we can get Grayson Halton to take a step this year, find that consistency that people continue to talk about, that improves your pass rush tremendously because you get something from the interior from your pass rush. And that's not even considering, okay, could David Stone and Jaden Jackson be impact players in year 1? It's not a stretch to think they could, but it's also high. It's a high expectation of a true freshman to come in and be the answer to some of your problems. The coverage, you know, you're a year older with Billy Bowman. You're a year older with Peyton Bowen and Robert Spears Jennings and all those, you know, young cornerbacks that came in the 2023 cycle. They're all a year older. So I feel good about the trajectory of the secondary, but again, got to see it. You know, you got to see it. You got to prove it on the football field. My good feelings, my optimism isn't going to win Oklahoma any football games. So we got to see all these things come together, all these questions that we might have. I think everybody feels great about the skill positions at wide receiver. I think we feel pretty comfortable that we'll get at least solid production out of tight end, and running back will be great with Gavin Sawchuk yet again. And again, I go back to Jackson Arnold. The talent's all there. The size, the arm, the mobility, the accuracy, it's all there. Now we just got to put it together on the football field for him. It's going to be his first year starting at the collegiate level. And so, you know, could he be, you know, someone who's just kind of okay, like Spencer Rattler 2020? Oklahoma won a Big 12 title with Spencer Rattler in 2020. Or could he be Dylan Gabriel in 2022? Dylan Gabriel wasn't the biggest problem, but he certainly wasn't Dylan Gabriel in 2023. So, you know, what can we expect from Jackson Arnold? I think there's a wide range of outcomes that could occur, but I think being good but not yet great is probably where he's going to fall in his first year as a starter.
We can talk more in detail about this as the week or weeks roll along, but all of this from Bill Connelly, by the way, in reaction to Mark Schlabach, who released his latest way too early top 25 that had Oklahoma ranked 14th, which you're not going to find me stomping up and down angry that OU's 14th in a way too early top 25. But anyways, that's sort of where all of this stemmed from.
Yeah, and again, the confidence about the offensive line that comes back to Bill Bedenbaugh and his development. 3 Sooners heading to the NFL scouting combine on that offensive line. 1 Sooner, he's kind of missing from that list, and we'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel. That's America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to new customers in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with their quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. A bunch of our listeners and viewers, maybe time to jump in on some postseason odds for OKC. I don't know. Or maybe you have a strong leaning somewhere or another about somebody else in the NBA. Sneaking up on us not too far away from the NBA postseason, believe it or not. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Stick around for the Locked On Sports Dallas show that comes on streaming right after this, part of the 24/7 Locked On streaming platforms. You can get city shows from Dallas, Atlanta, LA, but you can also check out our national show as well on the Locked On Sports Network. Josh, the NFL scouting combine is maybe a little over a month away. The NFL draft is just a couple months away, and the Oklahoma Sooners will have a heavy presence in the NFL draft. Maybe not as heavy as it could have been with Stutzman or Billy Bowman or even a Dylan Gabriel had he decided to go to the draft instead of to Oregon. But you're going to see Oklahoma names at least announced early and often in this one. 3 names heading to the NFL scouting combine: Walter Rouse, Andrew Raym, and Tyler Guyton. There it is. Thank you. I don't know why I had Wanya Morris on the brain because of the Super Bowl. Anyway, Tyler Guyton heading to the scouting combine. Any concerns that people ever have about Bill Bedenbaugh and his ability to put together offensive lines? I think these last couple of months have reinforced, at least the last month has reinforced that is nonsense. That Bill Bedenbaugh is one of the best offensive line coaches in college football, maybe even in football in general, NFL, college, high school, Pee-wee, Madden, it doesn't matter. He is developing offensive linemen. He's taking guys that weren't going to get a lot of recognition or a lot of love at one place and making them into legit starters at the Power 5 level and then get drafted as well. So it's cool to see a guy like Tyler Guyton, who wasn't playing offensive tackle that long ago, getting projections into the first round. Guys like Walter Rouse, Andrew Raym, they're going to get drafted. So you're going to see 3 more Bill Bedenbaugh offensive linemen get drafted this draft cycle.
Yeah, usually not a guarantee, but a lot of times a combine invite pretty much means, you're getting drafted somewhere. And obviously Walter Rouse, Andrew Raym, and Tyler Guyton will be the latest in that list of Sooner offensive linemen to go to the National Football League. Guyton, I do think, will be a first-round pick. There's some buzz that Rouse is climbing boards, and we'll see what obviously all 3 do at the NFL Combine, if they can, toss the bench press around a little bit or impress in interviews, whatever they need to see from these 3 to really impress, or the shuttle, right? There's probably some agility drills that they could do that would maybe enhance their stock a little bit. But bottom line is, yes, Coach Bedenbaugh, for any criticisms or qualms that we have at times, and I don't think all of it is unfounded or unfair. Folks want to see Oklahoma win a national championship, and so they want to see Joe Moore award-winning offensive line play again at Oklahoma. And let's just call it what it was. It took OU until at least the latter half of last season to run the football the way that Oklahoma fans wanted to run the football. And in part, that was because of the offensive line not just initially snap the fingers and it gelled. And yet you look up, and obviously here is Coach Biedenbow with his fingerprints all over a couple of transfers here. One, as you eloquently put out, John, that did not start as an offensive tackle. These guys are going to the league. Raym is going to the league. And let's hope that this latest crop of additions out of the portal that Oklahoma's went and found, we'll be talking about these gentlemen in an episode of Locked On Sooners in the not too distant future about, impressive season. And here they go to their own combine. Drake Stoops, well, what do you make of it? A lot of Sooner fans were upset that he was not invited to the NFL combine.
It's kind of ridiculous. And I was also surprised he wasn't invited to the Senior Bowl, because I felt like he was a perfect fit for the Senior Bowl. A guy that had played some football, had a breakout career year, and would have been a welcomed sight, I think, for GMs and coaches to be able to talk to him, see him a little bit more in person, get to know him a little bit better. And then the combine, that just blows my mind. I mentioned it on Locked On Sooners on Twitter, that imagine being a Power 5 wide receiver leading your conference, or being the best wide receiver in your conference in a given year, and then not being invited to the combine. And I think it just comes back to measurables, to being a short wide receiver and someone who, maybe before this year hadn't had a ton of production, but he was good. So yeah, it's disappointing. And, cause I'm one of those guys that I like to see somebody rewarded for the work. That's why people will see me get caught off sides a little bit by, how a prospect is ranked, in recruiting rankings after dominating different events or different All-American Bowl weeks and things like that. It's because you want to see guys rewarded for the work. And Drake Stoops has done nothing but work his tail off his entire life, and had a career year in his final season at Oklahoma. I think he gets drafted by somebody. Kind of my under the radar pick for that is Detroit. He just feels like a Detroit Lion to me. Dan Campbell's going to love that guy if he gets him in a meeting room and gets him on, in a workout. Drake Stoops will have the opportunity to perform in front of scouts at Oklahoma's Pro Day. But I mean, this would have been a great opportunity for him, for the entire NFL evaluation community, to be able to see him and get a look at what he's able to do on a football field beyond, or in the workout room, or in the meeting room, or, on the chalkboard. A lot of it goes beyond just the drills that they put him through. So I'm just kind of disappointed for Drake that he didn't get that opportunity to go show who he is at a deeper level than just what the film can show.
Yeah, it's too bad. It really is. After a year that he has 84 grabs, 962 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, which was the team lead for Oklahoma, and just the way that he closed from November on, when the games mattered the most for Oklahoma, to have 1, 2, 3 games where he went over 125 yards receiving. So now he was magical, especially late in the season for Oklahoma. He's been incredibly sure-handed, dating all the way back to when I used to get to call his games at Norman North. He was fabulous there. He was, of course, developed into being great at OU. He, I think, will be good anywhere that he gets an opportunity in the National Football League, because my man just vacuums in footballs. He brings them in and he makes plays after the catch. He's deceptively athletic, and probably, that speed is a little bit deceptive too. So I could throw a fit your way. I mean, I think somewhere like Los Angeles with the Rams, he feels like he'd be a good fit with them. Just some of the crossing type stuff that they do, and what McVay has done over the years. But again, if you want to say Detroit and I want to say the Rams, or you want to say a number of different franchises, Drake Stoops could help a lot of people out in the National Football League for a relatively low price. The fact that he's not invited to the combine probably means 6th, 7th round type selection if selected. And I think he can really help somebody and be a value steal late if somebody takes that chance on him.
Well, and even if they don't, and he goes somewhere as an undrafted free agent, he's 100% going to earn his roster spot. I have no doubts about that. A place like Kansas City, like how much would Patrick Mahomes love having Drake Stoops knowing like, hey, if I throw Drake the ball, he's going to catch it. I don't got to worry about him dropping footballs, unlike some of my other guys that I got to deal with on a weekly basis. So, Pat, go get your man Drake. You got to see him at one point in time. I guess he wasn't back. He wasn't with the Sooners back when Patrick Mahomes was playing college football, but it feels like Drake's been around for forever. So there's that. Anyway, go draft Drake. Go draft Drake. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, he's Josh. I'm John. Boomer Sooner.